What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Turnpike episode 1, brought to you by Eastbound. I'm Jake. I'm the co-owner and founder of Eastbound.
Hi, I'm Mochi. You can call me Vincent. I am the esports coordinator of Eastbound.
Basically, as you can see, this is going to be a little bit of a talk show. One of our other hosts, CJ, is not here today because his laptop is broken, but hopefully he'll be here for the next edition of the Turnpike. So, briefly about the show, we're going to talk about all things gaming, esports, content, anything in that realm, everything related to that. It's going to be a combination of things ranging from the drama in the industry to the state of different scenes to competitions, events, stuff like that. Vincent, you have anything about that?
Oh yeah, we're just gonna be going through covering anything related to esports. It's just we're just gonna be covering everything. We're gonna see like. We're gonna talk about the ins and outs of esports. We're gonna talk about the current state of being of certain games, upcoming games, games that are going down, and yeah, things like that in
Yeah.
future episodes.
Yep, we don't want to limit ourselves, to one specific niche. So we're going to talk about a variety of things. Any questions, any topics anyone wants to see that they comment on a video, send to us on Twitter, Instagram, anything like that, we'll obviously cover. We want this to be interactive, and we want it to, fulfill the needs of the community. So the first topic for this episode, we're going to jump right into it, is the state of esports as a whole. So not specifically one game, just the whole total of esports. Vincent, if you want to start, you can go for it.
Okay, so right now, obviously, this is gonna be like a little opinionated because some people might have different takes on what's going on with esports, obviously,
Definitely.
but I don't know. With me, I think esports right now is pretty stale at the current moment. Like, I think every community has their own little thing going, and it's been like that for so many years now. But like, Overwatch has their own thing with Overwatch League, and they're doing okay with that. And COD is a new league, but they're going slow. ESL has always been around with the CS:GO. League has always done their own thing. Dota has always been a little quiet in terms of their scene. Rocket League, they're private. All these fighting games between Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Tekken, Smash, they've always just done their own thing. And right now, especially after some like this is like kind of post COVID, during COVID kind of thing, but because of it, a lot of like almost all LAN games are done. So like the seclusion between like all esports, it's even a little bit more divided right now. I don't know. To me, it seems this the industry seems stale, and it seems like everyone's kind of just sitting around, just waiting for the next coming games to like come out and see what we can do with that. But there, at the current moment, there's not that many FPS games that people can go to are really like high competitive, tactics games. Um, like most games that are coming out right now, they're like solo players, storyline stuff.
Mm.
And I mean, yeah, those are a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong, but man, these competitive players, we're just sitting around just waiting. We
Yeah,
need
no,
something.
I definitely agree that it can get a little stale, and I think it has gotten a little stale. I think the whole COVID pandemic definitely plays into that, with no big LAN events, it taking a lot of coverage that would happen, and these important milestones for these esports games. COVID definitely put a halt on that, and then seeing things online isn't necessarily as fun because internet connection and that plays a factor in it. So the whole seriousness or maybe like legitimacy of the competition, you got to put like a little asterisk next to it when it comes to these events and stuff that's online, because how good is a team on LAN compared to online? There is a big difference there. um so yeah, I agree that it's a little stale, a little slow at the moment, but I do think that esports is currently kind of at the height in terms of viewership growth. I think the um the pandemic has people watching more esports now because regular sports are not on the air, as well as so many people being stuck at home. A lot of people are venturing into new areas and playing more games and learning more about maybe different scenes. So I think it might be stale at the moment, but it's promoting growth because everybody's stuck at home and has nothing else really to watch. So there's definitely like there's pros and cons right now for the whole esports scene. But I think the fact that it's growing, you see all these investments, all these big time celebrities, athletes, companies all investing into esports teams or esports related companies. It just shows that it's growing. Like I just recently saw an article about David Beckham is now a co-owner of Guild Esports, which is a new esports team that's coming out of Europe. So you got
Yeah,
a lot of things like that. So it's stale, but it's growing.
yeah. I mean, you like to see it, but sometimes I feel like a lot of these companies and like athletes or just celebrities, people who invest money into esports who aren't actually involved in it deeply.
Hmm.
Sometimes I feel like they're in it for a cash grab,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, because like sometimes I feel that way because I saw it with Overwatch League. And Jake, you already know, but like to the viewers, I'm like pretty heavily in Overwatch, but and I hate to see that like Disney, ESPN, and like YouTube and all them are just like cash grabbing onto Overwatch. But at the same time, everyone's been asking video games and esports to get more popular outside just the gamer audience.
Hmm.
So obviously, there's pros and cons to that, and but but you're totally right though. It's nice to see us growing instead of just like a closeted community
Yeah.
per se.
Yeah, you definitely have to be careful with how much I don't know what the word is, how much seriousness you look at some of these big time investors or companies that are getting into esports. Because, like you said, I think a lot of them, they see the industry and they see that it's gonna take over sports very soon here if it fully hasn't already in terms of viewership and where the eyes are looking. So everyone wants to get into it now before it reaches that maturity level or it hits that super exponential growth that it's already been seeing. So you have to be careful with how much you put into these big time investors and celebrities that are getting into it and who really cares about the industry and is going to do its best and who's just here to make some money. Um,
Right.
but at the end of the day, people putting money into the industry promotes growth in it. And that gives people like us and, our viewers and our supporters who are watching this that are really, deeply rooted in esports and really have a passion for it. It gives us, a bigger industry, more areas to tap into and more opportunity. So there's so many give and takes about everything related to any industry, but especially esports now with everything that's going on in it.
All right. So like FPS games right now. Let's talk about that. Um, what do we have now? We have CS:GO, Overwatch, Siege, Tarkov. I guess you can say Fortnite, even though it's not really first person. It's like a third person thing, but we don't talk about that. PUBG. I mean, I haven't heard much about PUBG in ages.
Yeah.
Honestly, Shroud got off of it, so.
Yep. And it's been a
uh,
while.
I know Tarkov is like doing its own thing, but at the same time, it's not like it's fun, but it's competitive. But I don't know, it's just not like you can't really watch it
Yeah, I know
on a
nothing
scale.
about Tarkov esports. I've played Tarkov like 3 times, and I've seen like Dr. Lupo stream it, but I know nothing about esports side of Tarkov.
I mean, I know it's a competitive game, but I don't even know if there's an esports scene. And if there is, then it's
Yeah,
super.
yeah, I'm not, I know nothing about it.
Then you have COD, of course, the big one right now with Warzone.
Hmm.
Definitely a lot more popular than its multiplayer, in my opinion.
Definitely, yeah,
And that's just what happens in battle royales. I guess it's more popular because I guess just anybody can play it, kind of, or
hmm
like there's just a lot more people who can play it at once in a lobby. I don't know. Maybe it's just like a different feel for COD. I know with this one, I know with Modern Warfare right now, huge comeback from like the past 3 years worth of COD at least.
yeah.
Like Black Ops 4 was okay. It was good, but it just got repetitive. Black Ops 3 was the same way. Infinite Warfare, we don't talk about that.
Infinite Warfare is the only Call of Duty game that I don't own. It's the
Oh,
only
good,
one. I own every single
good.
COD game except for Infinite Warfare because I was like, I'm not buying this. It just didn't interest me at all.
I got the one where it came with both the
Oh yeah, the remastered. Yep.
remastered and the Infinite one. I was gifted that, and I think I put a good 20 minutes into Infinite Warfare multiplayer,
And
and
you're
I
like,
just
nah.
no, like this is so bad. I mean, the remastered was okay, but it's a remastered, so it
Yeah,
got pretty stale. Everything before that, though, except for Ghost and man, what was that? Advanced Warfare.
I liked Advanced Warfare. Yeah.
The Advanced Warfare
I
was
mean, it
not
wasn't my
bad.
favorite, but it was the first of the jetpack games, so it was exciting.
Yeah, it was a good intro to those games. Yeah,
Yeah. But yeah, I agree that I think Modern Warfare got COD back on track for sure. But I think the casual player kind of likes Modern Warfare, especially Warzone. Warzone's a little different than like the multiplayer side, but in terms of
Mhm.
a competitive setting, at least for like the CDL, the COD League, these players hate playing Modern Warfare. Like they're so over the game. Like no one wants to compete in. I mean, they have to because it's their job, but like no one
Right.
wants to compete anymore.
It just feel good to play. Honestly, in my
Yeah.
opinion, like I used to play like some minor like COD League, like the small tournament stuff
Hmm.
way back in the day when I was a lot younger, and like even on like Black Ops 2 with their competitive mode.
Yeah, the league play.
Yeah, like I did that, and it just gets stale.
Hmm.
Like it gets repetitive. There's a lot of patterns. There's the gunplay is about as in depth as it gets.
Yeah.
You can talk about rotations and stuff, but those kind of rotations are nowhere near as close to like CS:GO site rotations, Overwatch map rotations, freaking League like area rotations. Like it's not even close in terms of
Yeah.
the way they're built like that. But I think intro to competitive play. I think COD is a decent place to start,
Hmm.
but it gives. I've coached. For some of y'all who don't know, I coach Overwatch, and I plan on coaching Valorant. But like I've coached like COD players moving into Overwatch, and man, it's just like they have no game sense at all. Yeah, they're smart players and they can learn. Yeah, don't get me wrong. But coming in, you can't take anything from COD that can and translate it over to a more team based game, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's comms and stuff, but the type of comms and like the precision of comms is so much more. It needs to be so much more accurate and correct than
Yeah.
COD.
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest like difference and almost like divide in FPS is you have first person shooters, which is like COD, and then you have tactical first person shooters, which is like
Oh yeah,
CS:GO, Valorant, even like I guess
huge.
Overwatch, Rainbow Six. So you have these games that are very like run and gun, just shoot. There's not a lot of
It's
recoil.
brainless.
Yeah, that's like
Yeah,
COD. And I mean, I like COD when I want to play something brainless, when I just want to run. Obviously, the competitive aspect has more brains into it than like casual play. But compared to,
yeah,
a game like Overwatch or CSGO or Valorant, where, there's site takes and how to retake sites and rotations and angles and nade spots and all this stuff, which there's similar stuff in COD, but it's not to that detail. There's these tactical shooters are a lot more catered towards esports, I would say.
oh yeah. Um, so like we talked about a lot about COD right there. Let's talk about I don't know. Let's talk about Siege, for instance. The Siege scene, very interesting. I feel like they're half-ass CS:GO players almost, or like a more they're like CS:GO with more like in-depth maps,
Hmm.
with like more. It seems like this is so much more intense. Well, CS:GO is intense. I can't say CS:GO is intense,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Siege, they did a really well job with their game. Um, honestly, I just think it's hard to grow. Okay, so the next one, Overwatch. The whole Overwatch scene. It attracts players, yeah, but its player retention isn't really good. Like Overwatch, I think overall from like an outside standpoint or like from an inside standpoint, it's a really good game, yeah, but it's mainly just our community is awful in comparison to a lot of other like scenes. Like like players aren't very supportive of one another for one.
Yeah.
So it's a really toxic. I would say it's probably one of the more toxic scenes in esports. Um, our our devs don't support us like going into big leagues very much. Like there is a thing coming up to where I, I think a lot of people have heard about Overwatch contenders,
Hmm.
the contender scene, and how like Blizzard doesn't have any funding going to it at all, and
Wow.
they put all their money into Overwatch League, and it's really dumb because I'm like, how do you guys think you're gonna keep Overwatch League running?
Yeah.
Like you need to have some sort of like feed into it, like a feed of players into it,
Hmm.
and like that's how you make your scene grow more if you make it seem like there's a possibility at the end, you know,
Yeah, definitely.
like a light at the yeah, a light at the end of the tunnel. But they're not doing that. So people who play Overwatch, it's like you feel like you're improving for no reason except just to get good at the game and have some kind of flashy number,
Yeah.
you know, on your profile. That's really about it. I mean, yeah, that satisfies some, but for a lot of people, when you've been in the, let's just say, top 500 for like the past 23 seasons, you're still not in Overwatch League. You know, it's really depressing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like if you're not even on a contenders team, it's really depressing. It's like you feel like you're doing all this work for no reason, and like the only reason that you haven't moved on is because you don't want to start all over again. Like you've had so much progress in Overwatch, and that's the way it feels. You can translate that to a lot of other esports where like you feel like you're doing good, but you're not doing good enough to actually get recognized by anybody.
Yeah.
Um, like that's a big thing, but at the same time, all these other games are getting so much support from their devs and like so much support aside from their devs and so much money elsewhere that like you're either secure or at least you'll get into a minor team if you're good enough.
Hmm.
With Overwatch League, it's not like that. With Overwatch, not like that. There's there's not enough companies who see Overwatch as marketable enough to make a small team in them.
Hmm.
Thus, there's not enough small teams. So, the getting into a small team is already competitive, and then now you have to compete for a more competitive seed from already competitive spot.
Yeah.
So it's like it's so 1% of the 1% of the 1%. Like it's
Yeah.
so ridiculous.
Sounds like Overwatch is gonna die.
Yeah. Uh, I think Overwatch is already dead. To me, I consider a game dead when it can't bring in any new players.
Yeah.
That's if it's done growing, then it can't bring in new people. Um, to Blizzard, they might think that the game is still growing and that their player base is still growing.
Hmm.
And in a way, that might be true. But at the same time, I think that's just the old players constantly making Smurfs.
Maybe.
So,
Yeah.
like I know from the console side, our top 10 right now consists of the same two players.
Wow.
Yeah, the last season was like for the tank top 500. It was just two players in top 10, and it was just their accounts.
That's crazy.
Um, for like a good 3-4 seasons, it was just one Junkrat one trick with like 6 accounts in top 10. So that's pretty funny. But like, yeah, you just see the same people there all the time. Like all the Overwatch League players, like you're either top 100 or you're not in Overwatch League.
Hmm.
And if you aren't top 500, then you've been in the scene for such a long time that you don't need to prove yourself anymore.
Gotcha.
So that's like those are like the only two ways. And then like even you being top 500 on Overwatch doesn't really mean anything because a lot of these pro players think that it's really easy to get. You're expected to at least maintain that for 10 seasons consecutively. So like either it's you're good and then you have to stay good and then you have to continue improving to where people notice you, and that's how the scene is. That's the only way you might be able to get recognized, and then you have to stream on top of that,
Hmm.
and get your clips like posted all over the place. That's like the only way.
Yeah.
Um,
It sounds difficult.
yeah, I mean you could say that about like every other scene.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, you have to be consecutively on top. You have to make content. You have to etc. Get yourself noticed. Yeah, I agree, but I know for sure with the Overwatch League scene, with the Overwatch scene, um, we don't have an outlet to go to,
Yeah.
aside from just in-game stuff. With the rest of y'all, you guys have LAN events outside. You guys have tons of sorts of events that offer money.
Yeah.
Overwatch doesn't have that. It's either go big or just go to a different game. That's really about
Mhm.
it. Um,
It's. I think it's interesting that there isn't like that feeder league or like something that's run through Blizzard, because I mean Blizzard does the COD League, but they have COD Challengers, which was like $6 million was put into COD Challengers for events this year, for these people, these amateurs that want to feed into the pro teams. So I'm surprised that Blizzard doesn't do that for Overwatch. Maybe they just don't see the promise in the Overwatch League compared to the COD League, or
I think they're so deep in the cash grab now
maybe.
because as soon as they signed with Disney and ESPN and YouTube,
Hmm.
like it kind of just sealed the deal, and everyone realized that, oh, Blizzard's just doing this for the contract,
Yeah.
you know. And as soon as they recognized that, they were like, oh damn, or the community was like, oh damn, but we were still hopeful. And then these big companies, ESPN, Disney, all these other companies, and then Coca-Cola, HP, Omen, like all these other outside companies who come in, they're like, oh man, they're being sponsored, they're being casted on these big, like like these big channels, you know.
Hmm.
So we need to like you keep on paying them to keep them going. So Blizzard is like, okay, we'll keep racking in this money, and then we'll just keep dumping money into Overwatch League. But then I'm pretty sure it came up to Blizzard at least once. It has to have at least where they're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
let's invest some money into contenders. All right. But here's the problem. The money that they're getting from all these sponsors, right? I'm pretty sure their sponsors have a voice over to say where their money goes, even though
Yeah,
like
you would
they're
think.
their money. They're like, okay, so we're giving you this money, but where are you going to invest it back into for your company? You know, and again, the conversation probably came up like, okay, let's put it into contenders. Let's put it into a smaller scene so we can get more players. These big companies who don't understand video games probably looked at contenders and is like, wow, what's this sad sack shit? And it's like, what's up? We're not putting money into that. There's no point. We're putting money into average players. We're putting money into minuscule players. And they probably saw that the viewer base for contenders is already like only 2-3 thousand, and they're like, okay, why would we put money into that? You know,
Yeah.
why would we like all invest our money into somewhere that's useless? You know, and then Blizzard probably just had to listen to them like, okay, fuck it, we can't do whatever we want with our money.
Hmm.
So they just, so now here we are. Contenders basically dead. Most of the teams have dropped out. Most of like all the academy teams for Owl have dropped out. Um, so yeah, the scene's dead.
Sad scenes. Sad scenes.
It's dead, dude.
You hate to see it.
You do hate to see it. It's really sad.
It's
Um,
sad because the Overwatch League I feel like was very revolutionary, when it first started.
oh
It
yeah.
changed the scene a lot, and it's sad to see it kind of cycle through so quickly from being prominent to being dead in what, 4 years?
No,
Not even
This is the third season.
third
This is the
season.
third
Wow.
year. This is the third year. Year one, amazing.
Hmm.
Year one was amazing because what happened was, so prior to Overwatch League, we only had Overwatch World Cup, which was hosted at BlizzCon every year in November.
Hmm.
And Overwatch World Cup was basically you take all these players from around the world and you could play with your country where you're from.
That's cool.
And this is the first time on a large stage where you see all these pro players align themselves with a country or place and then play under that name, right?
Yeah.
And play for their city, play for their country. And so I'm pretty sure that's how Blizzard got the idea to come in with Overwatch League. That's Overwatch World Cup was so successful. Year one, amazing because you had all these Apex players. I say Apex because that's what the tournament was called back then.
Gotcha.
All that was like the biggest one back then with like Envy and Lunatic Kai, C9, um, a bunch of small teams, like Hongdu, like Mystic Element Mystic. I mean, I think Runaway, um, LW Blue, like all those teams. Um, Apex is where it was started at. So you saw all these like star players come into Overwatch League or Overwatch World Cup and then play together on a pro scene. So year one Overwatch World Cup was amazing, and then year two came around, even more amazing. Year three was even more amazing, and then Overwatch League came out. Overwatch League killed Overwatch World Cup
uh
because there's no point in watching Overwatch World. There's no point in watching Overwatch World Cup
yeah.
because you've already seen everything from Overwatch League. Because Overwatch League was showing all the meta, right? It was showing what's good. It was showing who the dominant teams would be if an Overwatch World Cup was made, you know. So whenever we got to Overwatch World Cup, it was literally just Overwatch League. Just you just had the same nationality players on each team.
Yeah.
Your USA players, and people already knew what the roster was going to be. You don't have to be a coach to know who the roster is going to be. You already know who these star players are going to be. You know who the Canadian team was going to be. You know who the French team was going to be. The only team that was maybe question about who would be starting was the Korean team because there was you could make 3 Overwatch World Cup teams with the Korea teams with all the Korea players. And then China was interesting because for the first time China was actually a powerhouse.
Hmm.
Um, because in the first like 3 years of it, China was just like a joke, and people would just run through them in the qualifiers. And but then all of a sudden they just came out of nowhere and just started wrecking havoc. Um, what else? Uh, yeah, so like after as soon as that was over, I think year 4, year 5 of Overwatch World Cup, it was the year that USA won. Good thing that US won finally instead of Korea because Korea's won I think already 4 prior to that, and then USA finally won, but at that point no one cared. Uh, but yeah, Overwatch, sad place.
It is sad.
Yeah,
It is sad. Um, how about why don't we hop into let's talk about some Valorant.
Valorant.
Yeah,
Okay.
Valorant is the future of FPS esports. I think some people could say it's the
A
new
lot,
game.
a lot of people say that it is, and a lot of people say that it isn't.
There's no in between. People are either loving Valorant or they're hating it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's the debate whether or not Valorant is going to take over CS:GO or whether they can coexist. That's a whole separate thing aside from the point of whether or not a lot of people think Valorant's really boring um, in comparison to CS:GO or just as a game in general. I mean, there's so much controversy around. I think the Valorant esport and what's going to come of it. Seeing a lot of players from different teams or not teams scenes like CS:GO or Overwatch moving into Valorant. I think at
Even
first was making
Apex and Siege.
yeah. People were
Yeah.
thinking like, wow, like these people are leaving Counter Strike, one of the most solidified esports in the world, and they're coming over to this new game. And people are like, wow, it's gonna be great. But then as some of these events happened, people are like, this is kind of boring. So I personally like it. Um, I don't know what your take on Valorant esports is.
Okay, so here's my take on it. So it's not that I believe that Valorant. I don't think Valorant's. I I think everyone's fairly certain that Valorant will have an esports scene.
Hmm.
I think I think for Riot not to do that would literally they're literally kicking themselves if they
Yeah,
don't do that. Even if they come out with a bad one, people will be disappointed, but at least there is one.
yeah,
If they
true.
don't do it at all, they're really messing up. Um, I think I think CS:GO. I think they can coexist between CS:GO and Valorant. I think CS:GO is one of those games where it's going to be impossible to kill.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the devs seriously have to mess up. But the way Valve is, there's no way they're letting CS:GO die.
Yeah.
There's no way. And there's so much people. There's so many people who are so invested internationally into
Hmm.
CS:GO that the community can't die.
Yeah.
Um, it's almost like League. It just can't. You're never gonna kill like a powerhouse like that
Hmm.
because the community is so large and so there's so many people who love the game so much that you can't kill those. You can't. Those OG players will never die out. They love the game now. The OG players who are currently bored of their game, it's the players who are bored of the game that they're playing. I'm gonna call it their background game.
Hmm.
Like like they've been in the scene for a long time. They've played for a long time, but they just want something new.
Yeah.
They want a new scene to move into. This is where Valorant comes in. I think Valorant's going to be a good safe haven for all these players to back up, to drop into.
Hmm.
When you get bored of your old game or your background game, you can move into this new game and you can be here. And to a lot of these pro players, they feel like they're good enough probably to come into Valorant. And then even if it does go bad, they have such an extensive background with their game that they came from that they can just roll back into it.
Hmm.
And they're okay with being a small player and coming back in. You know, they know they can get good again. Maybe not. Obviously, for some.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I think Valorant's gonna be a safe haven game. I think the people who hate it are mainly the people who are very loyal to their current game.
Yep.
They're like, oh, like they're either very loyal to their current game or they just see the values in other games that are obviously better in their area.
Hmm.
Like CS:GO is very good in their attack shooter. Overwatch is very good in their character individuality. Siege is very good in their creativity in their attack shooter. Um, League is just, I mean, it's a MOBA. It's the OG MOBA.
Yeah.
Dota, okay, I don't even know about Dota. Dota and League are basically the same thing, but I like League more personally. Dota's okay.
I like Dota more.
You like Dota more?
Yeah, I personally I have over 1,000 hours on Dota, and I probably
Oh,
have 10 hours on League. I played Dota first, so that's why I think I like it more.
there might be some
I
bias.
never felt a reason to switch over to League because I like Dota and the friends I played with played Dota. So I mean
Okay.
I'm sure League is just as good. I'm sure
What's
I'm
the
sure they're
what's the
better.
scene like in Dota? Because I played League first, so
Yeah. So I think this goes hand in hand with what we are talking about with Valorant. League and Dota, are both MOBAs very similar, but they coexist and they
oh, it's
have
like the
diff
Riot and Valve
and
thing again.
yeah, and they have different scenes, which I think is important, and that's how they coexist. You have League, who I feel like League is very extravagant and very like viewership, like let's put on great productions and let's like market these teams with like the LCS and all that stuff. Like I feel like League is very focused on like viewership, whereas Dota is very like family closed off. Like you don't hear a lot about Dota esports. The only time you ever hear about it is when the TI comes around every year, because the
Right,
prize pool is 20, 30, 40, $50 million every year. It just keeps
right.
going up every year. So it's very closed, they're kind of secluded, but the fans are so loyal to Dota, and that's why these
I have
prize pools are
noticed that.
huge. Because a majority of the prize pool isn't like Valve feeding money into it. It's they sell the like compendium and the battle pass on Dota. You buy it for like, let's say, $10, or you spend money on levels to like level it up and get the cosmetics and the
And that
items,
money goes into the
and that
tournament.
money goes into the prize pool. So
Oh, that's really cool.
that's
Yeah.
why they're so loyal, because they love Dota, and then these people buy this stuff and it goes into the esports. So that they see these teams trying to earn the money that they spent on the game. So it's very they're
It's
just
a very creative way
interconnected.
to do the
Yeah,
prize
it's a
pool.
very creative way, and I think like
Overwatch, dude, take notes. Come on.
I personally I followed Dota esports for like a year straight, where like I was really into the game. And I mean, I was never good at the game. I was like 2K MMR, and like these pro players are like 6K MMR, let's say 6, 7, 8K. Um, but I loved watching the esports because I think MOBAs are super interesting.
They
Like
are.
there's just so the strategy and the tactics and like the unpredictability and the clutch plays that you can use with your like heroes or your legends, whatever you want to call them, depending on the game. It's I don't know, but I don't know. I think the fact that League and Dota can be so similar and so different and coexist, being I would say what League and Dota are probably both in the top three esports right now. You could even say they're the top two. That like, but I mean,
I
Fortnite
think
has been really
I
big
think
for
in
a
terms
while.
of numbers, I think League is still number one.
Yeah, I think League's number one. Dota's probably two or three. Fortnite's
I
in
think
there.
oh dude, don't even get me started on
Yeah,
Fortnite.
we don't have to talk about Fortnite now. We can talk about that in another episode.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I mean, going back to what I originally talked about with Valorant, I think Valorant's gonna, Valorant was made to be competitive. Um, and the fact that it's Riot that has had such success with the League, I think it's just going to translate into Valorant. I think they've done such a good job with the LCS that they're going to translate it over into something for Valorant that's going to be successful. And
Yeah.
they're going to cater to the competitive scene, because that's what they focused on, and I think it's going to work, no matter, like, I definitely think it's going to work.
They have too many pro players invested into it where they can't
Hmm.
back out now.
Yeah.
There's already too many pre-made teams
Oh yeah.
going into Valorant.
I
So
mean, the Valorant beta dropped, and within like I think it was a couple days. Like I wouldn't quote me on this, but within a couple days, T1 had already signed Brax, who was an ex CS:GO pro, as the Valorant player. Like
yeah,
people were already signing pro players for pro Valorant players when like the beta had just released, when no one had ranks yet. Like it was just solely based off of his amazing skill in Counter Strike.
yeah.
So the fact that people are so invested, and I mean now with the 100 Thieves and the Cash App has uh the Gamers for Equality tournament on right now, and you have 100 Thieves, you have TSM, you have Immortals, you have uh and T1's not in it, but T1's a team. You have so many big orgs that already have these pro teams that if Riot was to not, feed what the scene needed, these teams would be really really upset with them. And a lot of these teams compete in the LCS as well, so they
Right.
don't want to upset these huge orgs that have so much publicity and fans. Um, I don't know. I'm excited to see what they do in terms of Valorant Pro League.
I'm just curious when.
You got to think. For one, they've been planning a Valorant Pro League, I would say, for like well over a year now,
I
for
think
sure.
I think I think they're already planning. I think coming into the books
Hmm.
talking about Valorant.
Yeah.
What was it? What was Valorant called before they had the name?
Project A, Project Alpha, something like that.
Project A? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, was it Project A?
It was
No, it was
something.
Project something.
It was
It was
something
Project
like
A.
that.
It was Project A. It was Project A.
Yeah, it was Project A. I just checked it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure walking into Project A was we need an esports team.
Hmm.
We need an esports team. And from there it was like tack shooter
Yep.
with character based stuff. Move on. Um yeah. I think from the very get go, they already knew that they wanted an esports scene. And as to when, earliest would be next month.
Yeah.
But that would be so soon. That would blow
Yeah.
my mind.
I I don't know how much the pandemic has slowed down their progress on it, you know,
Ooh, I think it's
because
slowed down everything
for
across the
sure.
board.
But at the same time, I think it makes them want to get it out sooner because the viewership will be higher because everyone's at home. If more
Also true.
people don't have regular
And
sports to
there's less
watch.
money you have to. There's a less money you have to invest into LAN events.
Exactly. So they could put more. I mean, how much they want to put into online prize pools, I'm not sure. But yeah, I don't know when it's going to release, but I know when it does, it's going to be good. Like, I just have that faith in Riot, even as someone who doesn't follow LCS. Just knowing how much people love it and how well it's run and like all these big orgs that are part of it, I just have faith in Riot that I think this Valorant Pro League is going to be great.
Yep. I think it's the league players you need to talk to and talk and see what their faith in Riot is like.
Hmm.
Because I know they've been begging for things for years.
Yeah.
I forgot what they just released into League. They just released a new mode into League to where it's almost like a tournament style thing.
Gotcha.
Where like it's like a bracket. Like you play a game. Like you have basically you can either group up with a team
Hmm.
or it's a bunch of randos you group up with, and then it's a bracket, and
Hmm.
then you basically compete up the bracket, and if you make it to the end, I forgot what it's called, but it's like that. And I think they've been asking for that mode or some other mode for a really long time, for years now, and Riot has finally put it in, and they try to write it off as like it was their idea, even though I watched T1's reaction to it. He's like, bitch, we've been asking this for years, blah blah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's actually, I mean, Dota has something exactly like that. I don't know how long it's been in the game. It's got to be at least 2, 3 years now. They have the Battle Cup, which is like every Saturday. They literally have like an in-game tournament style thing. So I'm sure Riot doesn't want to sound like they're taking fan advice. They want to sound like they're keeping up with Valve probably.
Yeah,
But yeah,
just trying to satisfy the audience.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is a good segue for us to talk about why we chose Valorant as Eastbound's first competitive team. Obviously, for those who are watching this, we're recording this before we announce the org, but we have already announced at the time you're watching this, and we already announced the Valorant team. So if you didn't see, Eastbound has a Valorant team. They're our first competitive team. We can thank Mochi here for finding that team for us as our esports coordinator. So we really appreciate that. Um,
No biggie.
but yeah, I mean, as the esports coordinator, you tell me why we wanted to go with Valorant, considering we're on the amateur side, we're not on the pro side, so it's a little different.
So Valorant. Okay, here's why I want to go to Valorant. It's not because, okay, probably it is because, um, it's because all these other games, like we just talked about all these other games that we went through.
Hmm.
Like you have some there's OG, there's already like OG players, there's already OG teams, there's already big scene involvement, right? Like League, Overwatch, CS, Siege, Dota, those four games, even Fortnite and COD, right?
Hmm.
We talked about this, and they already have a scene established. They already have these teams. There's already so much that you have to work through to get to the top,
Yep.
right? Um, and with like again with a lot of these scenes that I said, they're kind of dead. They're not drawing in new players. They're not drawing in new viewers, or a lot of them are just consecutive, the same viewers, the same players consistently watching and playing. There's nothing new in the scene. It's very. This is why I'm saying the Overwatch. That's why I'm saying the esports scene is very stale. Viewership may be higher because now people are more available to watch,
Hmm.
but it's still the same people who have been there from the beginning,
Yeah.
right? Or if it's not the beginning, they've gotten to it very recently and they're getting into it. But the people who are just getting into it, it's a very small number, and there's very few prodigies anymore. Most people who are prodigies at a game, they're already invested into a game.
Hmm.
Like even let's say Destiny, for instance, there's already invested into it. Overwatch, they're already prodigy. They've already made their name. They're streaming or doing something related to it. Anyone who isn't no longer in the scene, they're just doing variety and jumping from FPS games like Shroud has been doing for years.
Yep.
Um, Things like that. So why we chose Valorant? I think it's a I think we're on the same pace as Riot is with um, trying to create something new and going on with it. And we're trying to jump this gun kind of early.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about what games we could get into. I knew Overwatch scene was dead, so I didn't want us to get into that. I knew the Siege scene was kind of quiet and closeted. Um, I didn't really want to get into that because it's kind of unstable as to where they actually are. Because sometimes they have a lot of viewership, sometimes there aren't. Sometimes they're like meh. People know when their tournaments are going on, but like, do we really care? No.
Unfortunately not.
Yeah. CS:GO. I mean, CS:GO is awesome and all, amazing. But like, we, I mean, it's CS:GO. In my opinion, we could always move our Valorant. I think we've always been told all our lives, right, to go shoot for something. If you have faith in it, just go into it.
Hmm.
So it's just us shooting our shot, and if we miss, we have all these other great games, amazing games
Yep.
who have established scenes for us to fall back into.
Exactly.
You know, and if Valorant is great, and then our Valorant team does amazing, then hey, this is we shot for the stars and we made the stars.
Hmm.
You know, so I mean, this is that.
Yep.
For a small bit of time, we considered a mobile team. I was kind of against this idea, but eh,
It,
you know,
we experimented with trying to find players and such, and
yeah,
you had your struggles with that, obviously.
it came
Um,
out to surprisingly way more closeted scene than I realized.
yeah, yeah. No,
um,
they always say the higher the risk, the higher the reward, right? And with Valorant being new, being no one knows what to expect. We sign a team. Let's say this team just starts running it up on online tournaments, which I have full faith in this team. They're really good. They have proven track record in other games, for being really good. But if this team starts succeeding like really heavily, that's gonna blow up the company bigger than I think signing a CS:GO team, because so many people, they see the Counter Strike's been around for 20 years. People, they're fans of the team they're a fan of, and that's kind of it. You're a fan of Astralis, you're a fan of Navi, you're a fan of Fnatic. So people are a fan of the team they've been a fan of for
right,
years. But with Valorant, yeah, these orgs are stepping into it, like 100 Thieves, like T1, like TSM. But if this underdog random team comes out of the woodwork and is like showing people who's boss, and is really like giving it to these top tier amateur teams, and then these pro teams, semi pro teams, who doesn't want to jump on the bandwagon of a team that's growing with a growing game? So and people can be fans of multiple teams. Like, I'm personally a huge 100 Thieves fan because I've been following, Nade Shot for 10 years. So I'm always going to be a fan of Nade Shot and 100 Thieves, but that doesn't mean I can't follow that amateur team that's making a rise to stardom. So
oh yeah,
that risk, just that newness, was enough to sell us on taking the risk on Valorant.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's just it's just riding the hype train,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. That Valorant is where the hype is. I would say right now in esports, and as an
There
org
isn't
that's
much hype. There isn't much hype in the scene, and there isn't much. People are very doubtful of this hype train
mhm,
and the rails that it's taking. But it's the only hype in the scene.
yeah.
So
And the more people doubt it, if it succeeds, the better it ends up being for us
oh,
and any other team that's a part
so
of
much
it.
better. Yeah,
So, you know, and it's like we're not like these pro teams like 100 Thieves that is paying these players six figures to play for them, you know? Like so in terms of the investment standpoint, the the uh the risk of whatever we're going to lose is not nearly as much as these pro teams. So it's like
right.
the possible ROI is much greater than the possible loss.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. I have super high promise for it. And I mean, as someone who personally, I've been playing a lot of Valorant and, I really enjoy the game. I always liked CSGO, and I think Valorant adds another layer with the agents that CSGO didn't have that I like. I liked Valorant, so I wanted to push for a Valorant team. And, it took some convincing for a couple people within the management team, but I think we're all satisfied with the choice we made, and I think we all have high hopes. Um, I think at the end of the day, it's gonna benefit us no matter what happens. Because we're just starting. How we you can't go down from where you started. I don't think
Exactly.
so. I don't know. I'm feeling good about going with Valorant, and if it doesn't work out, and the team wants to keep playing for us, and maybe they're really good, they want to transition back to CS:GO. Sure. Maybe we want to just move into CS:GO. Sure. Maybe we want to just totally drop Valorant and change it to something else. Sure. Like we have the freedom to do what we think is going to be best in the long run. So taking the shot on Valorant, I personally thought was the best idea, and I know you agreed with that.
Yeah. The scene is always changing, and you just gotta pay attention.
Hmm.
Gotta
We
pay
got to
attention to hype train.
You got to look. You got to figure out where the eyes are looking. And
Exactly.
a lot of people are looking at Valorant, and people are moving away. People are going back to Counter Strike. People are going back to Fortnite.
People are moving away from Valorant because
Yeah.
people are scared. I honestly think people are scared that because with a lot of these esport games, people from I'm gonna go back to Overwatch a little bit because that's what I know. That's my
Hmm.
background. People from TF2, Team Fortress 2, moving into Overwatch. That's where a handful of our pro players are from.
Hmm.
Hard Blue, Seagull, I think Super those came from Team Fortress 2 into Overwatch, and like that's a big risk. Whenever you're good at a game and then you move to a new game, it's very very risky. And there have been there's only literally like 5 games we can talk about with people moving into it,
Hmm.
right, or moving out of it into a new place, right. Whenever you hear a player is leaving the scene, they disappear.
Yeah.
They disappear. Where do they go? You never see them again,
Yeah,
right?
it's the truth.
And it's scary. You have this new big Valorant game coming in, and everyone's hyping it up, right? And you feel the urge, like, oh man, I should follow the hype, you know. But it's like, oh man, but what if I lose everything I've worked for the past
Yeah.
5 years, you know? So it's scary because like you don't. Let's say you commit into something new, and all this work that you just did just to get a little bit of somewhere
Hmm.
is gone, poof, like that within
Yeah.
a month.
In the blink of an eye.
Yeah. So a lot of people like are doubtful of Valorant because yes, it shows that it's strong, but is it really? And I think some people they're willing to wait it out, but some of us we're tired of our games. We're tired. We want something new. We want a
Yeah.
new scene. You know.
Yeah. It's gonna be super interesting to see how Valorant plays out from a pro level all the way down to an amateur level. Um, it's too early to tell. The full game's been out for five
A month.
weeks,
Yeah.
4 or 5 weeks, give or take, a couple days there. Um, no news of no big news of any established Riot run leagues, anything like that. It's all been third party through either organizations or companies, or these little amateur leagues that are running their own
Little
thing.
amateur prize pool based.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see one what the pro league does. I'm excited to see how the amateur scene does, and I'm excited to see what the connection will be in terms of challengers or whatever you want to call it, on how you can make it pro. You know, how these teams or these players can get noticed or work their way up the ladder. Um,
Definitely.
and all that'll be stuff that we'll cover on this show throughout the course of the who knows how many episodes we'll end up doing. The more news that comes out, the more we have to talk about, right? So
Exactly.
it'll
With
it'll
esports, there's always news.
yeah. There's always news. There's always drama. There's always announcements, updates. The scene has constantly got stuff going on, so we have never-ending things that we could talk about. And
Exactly.
yeah. So I mean, that leads us to the end of the first episode of the Turnpike. Thank you to everybody for watching. If you have any input on the things we talked about, you can throw a comment down below. We're going to be responding to everybody because we want to engage with the community. That's kind of the whole purpose for all of this. Um, Anything you want to see us talk about, it could be about anything. It doesn't have to be about Valorant. It doesn't have to be about esports. If you want to see us talk about literally anything, you can leave it down below because we don't want to limit ourselves to one scene. Um, Vincent, you have any closing remarks?
Oh yeah, I can ramble on for days. My close friends, I'll be linking this to y'all, dude. Y'all already know I can sit here and ramble for days about any topic. I like anything. I can I can debate it up easily. So I'll talk about dumb things. I'll talk about esport things. I'll talk about things that aren't related to anything at all.
And
Um,
that's what we want. It's got to be free flowing. If it's too structured, things get when they're too structured, they're just not as entertaining, in my opinion.
yeah. So we're keeping it easy. We'll see
Keeping
where
it
it goes.
easy, going with the flow, figuring out what works, getting better with each episode, hopefully. And yeah,
Exactly.
thank you all so much for watching once again. We'll see you all in whatever content we release in the future. I hope you all been enjoying our announcements and our release of Eastbound. So much to come, so just stay tuned. And yeah, we will see you in the next episode of the Turnpike.
See ya.